Teamwork isn't just nice to have in business, it's the undisputed competitive advantage. When your team members work as a unified force, your whole operation benefits through higher productivity, thriving creativity, and unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast, where we share with you strategies and tactics to help you develop game-changing teams so that you and your business can make a real difference in the world. Welcome everyone to this week's edition of Impactful Teamwork. My name's Julia Felton and I'm going to be your host and guide for about probably the next 15 minutes today, while we delve into a subject that's deeply personal to me at the moment. And I wanted to share it because it's something that, as leaders looking after and leading teams and leading businesses, that we really have to think about. But it's a topic that's not often discussed. And this is the topic of the law of legacy. Because a leader's lasting value is measured by succession. So what I want to discuss today is what is the legacy that we as leaders are going to leave behind us and how do we plan for that? And I'm prompted to record this episode because just 10 days ago, I had to put down my horse, Toby. And Coach Toby had been in my life for 25 years. He was the reason that I set up my business, because I formed Business Horse to help leaders improve their leadership skills and teamwork and communication skills through partnering with the horses. And I did that because Toby needed a job to do when I couldn't ride him anymore. And what has been so heartwarming to hear and to see is the impact and legacy that horse had. He has helped literally hundreds and hundreds of leaders and teams improve and develop their skills. And virtually every picture I look at of team workshops that I've run, the teams often, probably in 90+% of the times, opted to work with Toby. They actually thought, I think he would be an easy ride as the horse to partner with on teamwork events. And it typically proved not to be the case. And he was quite a complex horse who demanded a lot of trust and needed to get a lot of certainty from the leaders around him. And if he didn't, then he got anxious and he used to run away. And leaders were surprised when that happened because he was really, really accommodating, should I say, in most scenarios. So I thought it's really appropriate, with this on my mind at the moment, to talk about the law of legacy. And I guess in its crudest form, it's what do we want people to say at our funeral? How do we want to be remembered as a leader? Because most of us never really consider this. And we don't really live our lives intentionally thinking about the impact and legacy that we want to leave. And it's important because, as I said, a leader's lasting value is measured by succession and what we've left behind. And I wanted to share this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, who said, "Life is like a parachute jump. You've got to get it right first time." And I think in life, we really have to think about what we want to achieve and what we want to accomplish, because this isn't a dress rehearsal. We get a one-time shot at this, but we do get to choose what we decide to do. But the problem is many of us aren't being intentional in what we want to achieve. And I think it's also true to say that our legacy and our impact, what we want to achieve, often changes over time. And I know certainly from my own perspective, when I was in my early 20s, it was having a really successful corporate career. In my 40s and 50s, it's been more about the impact I can make and how I can serve and support and add value to others. So I definitely think our legacy and our impact changes over time, but we just really need to be conscious of what it is. Because if we don't spend that level of intentionality in deciding what our legacy wants to be and who we want to become in order to achieve that, then what happens is that either we don't achieve it, or we end up leaving some other legacy, which isn't what we intended to do. And I think as a leader, and certainly many of the clients I work with, really, they want to make an impact on future generations. And they also want to make sure that legacy is a positive one. I know in terms of my own thoughts, the legacy I want to leave is one of adding value to others, but doing that through creating workplaces where people really thrive rather than survive, and where we recognize and appreciate that the current ways that we're running and leading businesses aren't sustainable for the 21st century, and we need a new model, and that model looks to nature. So my greatest legacy I think I could leave is to awaken people to the fact that there are other models of leadership out there that exist, and that nature has an amazing blueprint if we are just bold and brave enough to stop and look at how nature operates and how it works in terms of interdependence and interconnectedness. And it really understands the impact it has on the environment around us. And that's something that, in my opinion, is sorely lacking in our corporate world, is that many leaders just don't really understand this ripple impact that they're making on the people around them, and how often we can unconsciously be creating that negative ripple around us. So that doesn't create a great legacy for us to leave behind us. So I wanted to share with you a few concepts or ideas around legacy that you might want to think about. And the first is one that we've already alluded to, is know the legacy you want to leave. Because most people simply accept their lives and they don't actively lead them. They're not proactive about what they want to achieve. And as a result, it can be very easy for us to drift through life and get to the end of our lives and realize and live a life of regret and just wish that there were many things that we had done. And I remember a mentor of mine once said, you always want to live a life of no regrets, where you want to be dragged into the funeral parlor, shouting and screaming, and be happy and joyous that you have achieved everything that you wanted to do. So that means we have to be really intentional and really set out that really clear purpose and vision for what we want to achieve, and then who we want to impact along the way. Because when the day comes and we do pass on to the next world, I certainly would want people to be at my funeral saying great things about me, but more importantly, really recognizing and have been influenced by the impact that I have made on them. And what's been really heartwarming is listening to clients recently, them sharing about the impact that Coach Toby had on them. Clients sharing how learning from him about different positions of leadership empowered them, for one particular client, to set up their own business, which is something that they had never intended to do. They were actually an employee in another organization. But through learning to be empowered and learning to stand in their truth, they took that brave, bold step and have created their own business, which is doing amazingly well and winning all kinds of awards. And other clients have told me that what they learned from Toby again was about the power of connection and building relationships with other people. And one particular client I'm thinking of, after our workshop together, went back to the workplace and within 6 months had got a promotion to a dream job that she never ever anticipated to get, and also started to implement a lot of what she learned about in terms of empowering her team members rather than micromanaging, and how that has given her a lot more time, freedom to do what she wants to do, and so has made a massive difference to her lives. Toby was really intentional about the legacy he wanted to achieve, and I didn't really see that at the time, and I'm really blessed to be able to look back now and see that and see what an incredible legacy he left for people. The second tenet that I want to share with you today is about live the legacy you want to leave. If you're a leader and you want to have any credibility as a leader, you must live what you say you believe. So you've actually got to do what you say you're going to do. And there's a number of areas in which we can influence people in our lives, which are in the areas of maybe religion, economics, government, family, media, education, sport, business. And we really need to make sure that our legacy is aligned with what we want to do. In my particular case, my legacy is very much aligned with business. I'm very clear that business is a force for good. And as business leaders, we can make a massive difference in the world. And I think actually business leaders, if we all collaborated effectively together, we have a lot more influence than governments and a lot of other areas. So business is a massive force for good in my book, and just a way that through my work and working with other business leaders, I can make an impact in the world. The third tenet I just want to think about is this one of choose who will carry your legacy. Because actually, as a leader, we have a duty of care, I believe, to think about our succession planning and who is going to carry the baton after we leave, whether that means we retire from the role or we decide to leave the company or ultimately our time is up on earth. But a lot of leaders that I work with really don't think much about succession planning and what's going to happen next. And I guess I was probably pretty guilty of that when I was in the corporate world. There was a time when I took a sabbatical from the corporate world for a year. And one of the biggest challenges, and one of the reasons I nearly couldn't do that, was because I hadn't really thought about what my succession planning would be. And if I stepped away from the business for a year, who would run my business unit in my absence? And thankfully, I had about a 5 month window of opportunity in which I could pass on those skills to my deputy, who then stepped up and took over the role in the year I was away from the business. But many leaders are actually too stuck in the business to take the time away. And what I see a lot in scaling companies in particular is business leaders who are becoming the bottleneck in the business. And when they become the bottleneck in the business, there is no succession plan. And of course, the business leader begins to get stressed. The company can't scale any faster because everything is going through the business leader. So we really need to give some thought to succession planning. And I think it was really interesting because Coach Toby had clearly thought a lot about his succession planning. And I have been witnessing probably in the last 3 years, because Coach Toby was 32, which in horse years is actually a really good age to go to. But yeah, in about the last 3 years, his health had started to decline. He was finding it more and more difficult to eat as his teeth had eroded away. And what we have witnessed was a little mare in my group called Thistle stepping up into the leadership role. And so I have seen maybe over the last 3 years that kind of succession planning happening. Unfortunately, however, Thistle isn't proving to be a great leader. And let me share why, through no fault of her own. Thistle joined my herd of horses, I have four of them, when she was only 9 months old. So she was very young. And she joined the herd with her friend, Coach Bracken, who was also about 9 months old. So the two ponies, Bracken and Thistle, were very young. And so that left Toby or Charlie to be the herd leader. And bless him, Charlie is from the racing fraternity. And he hadn't been in the herd that long, maybe only about 18 months. And he was still, quite frankly, getting over the trauma of coming out of the racing world. And he really had no interest in being the leader. So Coach Toby stepped up to be the leader. And in herds that he'd been in previously, he would never have been the leader and he never exhibited the skills of leadership. But he assumed the role of leadership because there was nobody else to do it. And perhaps you've seen this in business where people get promoted into a leadership position where they don't have the skills to do it. And that was definitely Coach Toby. So, unfortunately, Coach Thistle has learnt her leadership skills from Coach Toby, who wasn't a highly skilled leader. Of course, Coach Thistle isn't demonstrating great leadership skills. And again, we see this in business where people get promoted and they role model what their boss has done, and their boss might not have been the most skilled leader out there. So I think that's always something to think about. Who's going to carry your legacy and what's your succession plan going to be? And in his book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, John Maxwell says there's a natural progression to how leaders develop in the area of legacy, and it starts with a desire to achieve. So at level 1, achievement comes when we do big things by themselves. So when leaders do things by themselves, that's a level 1 success. Level 2 success comes when they empower team members to do big things for them. Level 3 success comes with significance, and significance comes when we develop great leaders to do things with us. And then level 4 legacy comes when we put leaders in positions to do great things without us. And I think that's the thing as a leader. We've got to remember that almost our role as a leader is to effectively delegate and empower all of our work away so that we can step out of the day-to-day operations and almost be a conductor of what's going on. And all of our team members are effectively like the orchestra. And our job is to step away and just conduct what's going on and then pass the baton on to somebody else. Because legacy is created only when a person puts their organization into a position to do great things without them. And then the fourth tenet here is to make sure you pass on the baton. And this is very similar to who's going to carry the legacy, which we've just talked about, which is who is going to be doing the job for you. And as I said, Coach Toby actually did a really great job within my herd of setting that up. I think one of the real things that we need to reflect about impact is, what is our impact going to be? What are people going to say about you as a leader in the years and months after you have left the organization or left this world? I think it's interesting when I think about this, because when I think about my corporate role when I was at Deloitte and Arthur Andersen, I never really thought that I was creating a legacy. As some of you might know, I created the first ever global hotel benchmarks for the industry. And that was really pioneering. It had never been done before. And I'm incredibly proud of what I achieved there. And that work actually has a pretty much infinite legacy. When we sold the business unit that I had created to my US competitor, that work is still being done. And I know it's incredibly valuable and welcomed by everyone in the hotel industry. And the company that did acquire us, they're now doing even more great things with that data that we started the collection process of. I feel incredibly proud of that legacy that sits there, that I was the founder of something that's a global business that will exist in perpetuity. And it's really made me think even more about the legacy I want to create with the horses, and in helping businesses really understand that there is this new blueprint of the way that we can run and lead businesses based on nature. And for me, that will be an amazing legacy, that leaders actually realize there is a different way to do things going forward. So really my invitation and my question to you for this week is, what's your legacy? Are you thinking about your legacy in an intentional way, or are you just drifting through? Because I would encourage you to really stop and take some time out and get really clear on what's that legacy, what do you want to be known for, and what's the impact that you want to make in the world. So those are some of my musings this week, inspired by Coach Toby and the incredible impact that he made on so many of my clients during my workshops with him. So until next week, have a fabulous time. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast. Please stay tuned for future episodes and do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favourite platform. Recommendations are essential for attracting new listeners. Please follow us on social media at Julia Felton and at Business Horsepower. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover on future episodes, please do let me know. Remember, you and your team are always making an impact. What impact will you make today?